This is Wayward Renegade Witches blog. Hit us up when you want some real motherfucking work done. Of course, go to the Wayward Renegade website. See the phone over there. Hit me up in reference to 101 monthly lessons. 101 lessons I do with individuals that I work very closely with. In addition to work, and understand the work is separate from the monthly lessons, and the work is separate from the 101, meaning that when I work closely with individuals, but I can incorporate it if need be. However, you already know that in reference to abortion spiritual counseling, or energies in reference to spiritual deprogramming, of course, hit up Wayward. I've explained what those various frequencies are. But if anything else of needing help with spiritual growth frequencies, or questions for the monthly lessons, just hit me up. I'm going to start again, of course, in the month of July for the monthly lessons. But separate from that, if you just downright need, of course, mentoring, understanding different frequencies in your life, and direction and so on, everything under the sun, advocating for different frequencies in your life, or up and coming things that you need help with in reference to this practical world, of course, hit up Wayward Renegade Witches blog. However, you already know that Wayward is about that revenge, redemption, and responsibility. And you already know that art is occultism. Occultism is a motherfucking art. And I'm just back again because there's some interesting spiritual energies under these jubilees, right, that you guys are not paying attention to, that they have you guys distracted under. Okay, so I'm just kind of going to go around in circles since we in Cancer frequency, and I've had people say, hey, you called us an honorary Cancer because we're at the end of June. Don't take it personal. I'm just making fun, right? And of course, you're part of the group of protest of the month, and them up there incorporating a Muslim Heritage Month. So you're gonna be eating them pork chops and shit and more, and hog ball and fucking intestines. What is it? The chitterlings, you guys call it, because we just gonna protest that shit. You don't put that shit with Cancers. Drink some fucking whiskey. We denounce that. Anyways, there's an energy going on that I think we missed because we've been so distracted as Black people in this universal soul, and we just kind of want to go through some things. Sometimes we have to go back to go forward. You guys missed something. You guys missed some spell work that they've been throwing out on social media. And understand, social media is air and fire energy. It is what I call, in addition to cyber consciousness that fucks with our subconscious, right? Cultural power. There's been white people getting on The View, getting on podcasts, discussing Black people. They're invested in us. They are invested in our business, that they have the audacity to speak on fake pastors, and getting on social media pointing out the false pastors and the false prophets and shit like that, right? And I'm like, am I supposed to trust somebody who has the same skin as a pig? Not being rude or disrespectful, in science, and they've talked about it in books, that these people have the same skin as pigs. So why would we listen to anything that you are a descendant of a pig? I'm not being rude. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just talking about the science. And I'm sure they already know this, right? So if you are a descendant of a pig, wouldn't that mean that you talking pig talk? And we have to be careful of that frequency? Because wouldn't that mean that the words that come out of those energies means that it's demonic? And we have to have discernment to decipher it. Again, I'm not being disrespectful, I'm not being rude. I'm just talking about what the science have tested in comparison to skin. It's not close. They say it is the exact energies. So as Black people, should we be listening to something that is connected to Hog Maul? You know I'm special, so I don't know anything, so just don't listen to me. So we have this new Wiggertron energies of these Wiggertrons out here talking shit about Black people and power. And it is rolling around on social media, right? Here's something that's very interesting. This goes back to the Old Testament. And again, I said everybody that fucks with Jesus end up fucked up. I was looking at one of my comments and something was very interesting, and you're absolutely correct. Jupiter equals Peter. Jupiter and the planets also equals the Last Supper. And the biblical energies of part of the philosophical frequencies is that the whole Bible is about planets. And we have to understand that some things that are written is, of course, is philosophical. Okay? So I'm going to meet you where you at and understand we have to act like the people who are angry with Paul. See, soul, which is in the Old Testament, equals Paul, who resurrected himself in the New Testament, who was the backer of Jesus. And what I get out of it is that when Paul was trying to tell the people to follow this person, this energy, this frequency of Christ, the people became angered and said death to him, within those words. And as Black people, especially American Black people, we have to say death to words and death to all this curses and spell work and voodoo and hoodoos that's against us. And if everybody is not on board, that's okay. Let them die. But we don't have to die that fucking know better and fucking have discernment. Because again, it is the attack of the cyber conscious into our subconscious, right? So what I'm saying to you is that we have different cultures of Wiggertrons who are in what we call mixed company, and they over here stepping in our fucking business and talking about that there's too much cultural power. See, that's the part that you guys miss. See, now we have to sit back and now understand why they are attacking the different Black, as they call celebrities, famous, or entertainers, or whosoever, is because we have Wiggertrons of people of a certain descent of the same skin type of a pig up there running their mouths in our fucking business as Black people, talking about we have too much cultural power. So doesn't it make sense now that all of this energy has been pushed forth and all these sponsors of negativity going towards Black people? Let's really talk about the game. Most recently, I had an individual, and this story is so convoluted, but I've heard this so many times. So therefore, we have this energy with the Black youth. They don't have nothing to do. They're horrific. They YNs. They all of this shit. The parents ain't shit, right? But they don't talk about in each city that they have decreased and minimalized and removed different programs, different subsidies for our Black youths. They're not talking about that they have infiltrators within the neighborhoods who are selling these kids wolf tickets, giving them drugs, giving them crank, the increase of crack smoking among teens and young adults. Them giving them free drugs. You seen the shit in Philadelphia, how they was doping them up, giving them free dope. You see in San Francisco, they're giving them free dope. They have people living in San Francisco that don't even fucking belong there. People coming from all around the United States of the Americas. So therefore, they're not talking about the fact that they're up there giving these people free dope to get high. Well, it's the same thing with the youth. They're hyping them up. In addition to, we don't know what's going on above us in the universal soul with different satellites and frequencies in music and different points of frequencies that may affect our brains, our airways, our nose, ears, and eyes, our whole bodies, that cause a ruckus. Okay? So we very much have to be careful, because you have to remember the whole programming during the pandemic was to create an angered and mayhem society. Okay? So the bottom line is that when we're talking about cultural and power, they're breaking down the system. So therefore, the very interesting frequency is, they sat up and they pay these kids to be thugs. They pay these kids to sell dope. They pay these kids and give them guns. There's a whole energy, a whole scandal, of all places, of course, Louisiana. And the scandal is so convoluted. Okay? So the person was telling me that their brother snitched to the feds on a family member. I'm telling business. On a family member. However, the family member was being interesting and being a pharmacist for the Asian and Mexicans, we're going to say. So whatever it is, what it ain't, the brother told. The brother gets caught slipping whatever in them streets. These young adults walked up on him and beat his ass with high-powered guns, as they say. Didn't shoot or kill him, but beat his ass with it, with the guns. Later, it is found out that the guns were taken out of evidence at a location at the sheriff's office. Everybody is wondering who in the fuck went into the evidence room and took these high-powered guns that was connected to 2 murders as is. But then it is also found out, allegedly, that the guns was also connected to the alleged case of Megan Thee Stallion and the shootout in Los Angeles. Well, how did those guns get from Los Angeles to allegedly Louisiana? But wait a minute, plural, guns. What was really going on? Wait, hold on. Wait, what? They didn't say those are the guns that shot her. They said in connection. So somebody went in, guns over here, guns already connected to 2 murders. Somebody go into the evidence room, get these guns, and put the guns back on the street. For it to do some work. So not only do you have governmental energies putting guns and drugs on the street, you have motherfuckers sneaking their asses up in the, the evidence room, pulling guns out, giving them to the youth that's already hot to do more crimes. So like Washington, D.C. has an emergency going on with the young black youth, but nobody want to talk about what's really going on and how the governmental energies keep throwing dope up in these neighborhoods and giving these kids drugs and stuff, and then have other cultures come in and infiltrate the neighborhood, that the kids are basically bonded to these people and then end up in prison, incarcerated, and so on, in a youth center, not going to school, right? But they're worried about culture power. See, you fuck with the youth and then it diminishes the culture power. See, they want to sit up and talk about all these black people in the entertainment, what they've done, and I'm not going to buy this and I'm not going to buy this from black. Well, don't. But they don't talk about their own people because they hide their own people. Nobody want to talk about Kevin Spacey molesting all the motherfucking kids, and we don't know where the fuck Kevin Spacey is. And then they done sold his whatever townhouse or condo in Maryland. We don't want to talk about all these white people who was part of this bullshit. They just want to talk about black people because, as they said, cultural power. And I don't understand what the fuck is going on. It appears to me there's also a suppressing of voice, of censorship, since they have all these motherfuckers and making a one capital society. And they're monopolizing all of the social medias, the news and so on. You don't really get to see people talking and process because they're suppressing it. Just like people will be asking me, well, you should have this, more views, whatever, because I'm suppressed, because I'm speaking real, speaking right. They don't want the mass to be on some real motherfucking shit. That's why you get people who will say, ooh, she talk too much. Ooh, she loud. Ooh, she this, she that. I don't care. But if I was telling your black ass to go get prep, that'd be a whole different story, wouldn't it? So we have to be careful of these wiggertrons out here on social media spreading their propaganda. Because what it is, that they're motherfucking haters against black people who can really control a culture. So then the other energy is that they keep bringing people to, how can I say, befriend us. I'll get to that in a minute. Then I had somebody who was saying gentrification is due to black people not being able to afford their property. That's motherfucking bullshit. Black people sold out their properties. They moved out of their neighborhoods. The motherfuckers who really couldn't afford their property was really a lot of third world people. Black people have always had certain wealth, prosperity, and income, but then when they died off, their kids, grandkids, and nephews and nieces and shit sold the shit or got on crack. That's why crack created the gentrification. It pushed people out. Just really look at gentrification. But however, when I said black people were the first gentrifiers of certain energies, y'all copped an attitude. They used black people to blacken neighborhoods. That's why white people were oppressed in their white neighborhoods. Black people got loans. And they let them live in white neighborhoods. You have one black family. I was looking at that shit. What was that in New Jersey? Was it in the 70s or late 60s? And then white folks cut the fuck up with the one black family that was there. Really understand and analyze gentrification. Instead of being so argumentative to prove your point, look at it from all perspectives. I've witnessed black neighborhoods being fucked up and gentrified due to black people wanting to sell their properties and so on. However, drugs also help the gentrification. I remember my grandmother's friend, he died, Mr. Hicks. His granddaughter was left the Victorian house. She had a whole crack house going. What are you talking about? She fucked up all that shit. And Mr. Hicks' sister lived in the next Victoria, like next is like, you know, two places. There's an upstairs and a downstairs. She fucked that up. Come on, stop playing. And that's in San Francisco off of Baker. Is it Baker? Shit, stop. Near Central. Just look in your neighborhoods. Even in, I don't care if it's in New York or whatever. What happened? Black people lose their property because they also take equities. They get these loans, balloon payments, doing too much, living high on the hog. Then you end up getting your shit foreclosed. But that is done because you have too much cultural power, right? What is also very interesting under the, as I call it, the Jubilee energy. Somebody was, I guess, wanting to correct me or to expand when I said the rumors of war. And they wanted to say that the end shall come. No. The end shall be reset. See, that's where you guys get fucked up. It is not the end of times. Because the Spirit also say it is not the end of times. And the reason why it's not the end of times is because we're under the Jubilee. And when you're under the Jubilee, you get another chance of reset. However, how they're playing your brain, they're saying under the Jubilee, you are conditioned to become broke and under other people warfare and loss. So you got to be careful during this time, because this energy of Jubilee is for unstableness of the Gentiles. You see, that's why I went back to Paul. See, Paul was preaching to the Gentiles, and they have created us as the Gentiles. So that's another energy of dictatorship to put us in a category as Gentiles. And that's why they keep putting these hybrids on top of us, because they're saying we're Gentiles and we're not Gentiles. How dare someone say what we are and make us a lower level as if we are not in the spirit, as if we are unclean. And that's why the people said, kill them. So you got to be careful under this energies of Jubilee, because you have demonist motherfuckers out here getting on Mount Sinai before the shit got popping. Bishops and priests and whosoever's and rabbis praying on Mount Sinai and recreating the word and the principles and philosophies leading into the Jubilee. Because what it takes is, in reality, what, as I call it, Christian scholars coming in, swooping that shit up. You don't sit up and help make money for other people who believe that they are blessed under the Jubilee, and you don't bless yourself. You bless yourself under the Lord, under the Spirit, whatever you're under. And you go to that entity, that deity, that ancestral frequency. Whatever you're doing. I don't give a fuck if you're an atheist. But you don't fall under the Romanesque energy, because that's convoluted and it's under the Jubilee. Right? So again, we have to be careful. Because now in this frequency, they're psyching our mind. They're playing games. Somehow we're watching the paid actors, and we're part of the cast as they're casting spells. Yes, we have to think old school and say, damn, they putting us under hypnosis like a motherfucker, right? Okay, let's see what's going on here in the universal soul. This is how they're treating you Gentiles under the Jubilee, as you guys are distracted with some energies. HUD moved out of Washington, D.C. into Alexandria, Virginia, into this building called the National Science Foundation, NSF. The people said the day before they went to, the day before, they got this big announcement talking about they're getting kicked out of their building and HUD is moving in. The mayor of Alexandria is saying she had no clue. And this never happened and is considered out of district. I said, how you didn't know? How in the fuck can someone move out of one district into a whole other city in a building that was occupied by another federal entity? So HUD moved from one building in DC of location, got all their people, moved to a whole other but smaller location in another city? And you telling me there's no funny business going on? This shit sounds right? Is this real? So they just doing shit in air. See, that is why I said there's no maritime in air. And some of you people is just dumb and don't understand what I'm saying, because I'm saying what is in water is in air. When I'm talking maritime, what I'm saying is that there are no rules in air. They're emailing people, letting them know something is happening, but there isn't any rules. There isn't any checks and balances. There's a difference if they give it to you in writing, in hand. Here's a document in writing. But if it's in writing, you have some legal energies. But they're playing in air and sending people emails and text messages where there isn't any laws to protect. It's like what they was telling me about Tesla. Like, basically you can't sue Tesla because it is considered an automatic vehicle, which is considered in air. It is using an electricity from air. It's air magic. It's air work. It's cyber frequency. There isn't any laws in place for cyber. That's why they can fire you online. And in some cases, it's not considered wrongful termination because there isn't any laws that protects you online. So they can sit up and send a mass email and say they firing all you motherfuckers, and you're like, wait a minute, what? And you go get yourself a damn an attorney, employment attorney, and he might not can even help you because it was done in air. That's why people should become attorneys and start being cyber attorneys and doing cyber law and doing cyber employment. Because what is on earth is not what it is in heaven, but it's supposed to be what it is in heaven. But it's not happening because they're creating different laws in air. So these people received some notice in air that they are no longer going to be in this building and kicked out. And allegedly the union is saying that the person, the secretary of HUD, the secretary of HUD was promised some faculty shit. So this is some straight hierarchy bullshit, railroading people, and abuse of power. This is what you call abuse of power under a new dictatorship. And people are not talking about what the hell is this? How is this shit flying? The other energy that's a bunch of bullshit in air is, and you have to be careful because we're watching this in the cyber world. They talking about that Los Angeles is broke and cannot pay the police department overtime for working during that energies of the protest. I said, when did LA become broke? When Hollywood failed? Because that's where they get their money from, right? What is that about? I said that is straight hypnosis. That is straight bullshit, and that is under the energies of Jubilee. They're creating this porric society under Jubilee. And it's straight propaganda. And you have to be careful subconsciously what your eyes see. It's like subconscious voodoo. We're going to get into your consciousness, tell you all this shit, so you will be conditioned to be under poverty, brokenness, no wealth, no income, no nothing. And we're going to keep telling you there's no money in shit, so you don't even try to own a business, open up a business, do a side hustle, and so on. Create an atmosphere for yourself. We're going to say we don't have money. Come on now. I was just seeing where allegedly this vice mayor chick was talking about get the cholos and the gangs and whatever to govern their neighborhood. Shit. And then more and more, how, I have that guilty pleasure, as I call it, that Caroline Levitt. And, we were talking about what type of coven she has. This girl is demonic. I was listening to her ass in what was that? It was she was addressing some Fox journalists and how the woman is a liar, the woman is this, and the woman is that. And then that what's it, that Hagerty, the whatever? What's his name? Hagerly? I said, what's wrong here? Why do they keep addressing this woman, saying she's a liar, right? And what is she? The secretary of press, the press conference, whatever she is. However, Caroline Levitt, I'm listening to her. I said, she's so aggressive. She's having a white woman anger issue problem. If that was a black woman so angry, she would just be called out. They would say she's an angry black woman. Black women are so aggressive. But she comes with full force. And I think I'm scared of her. And I think all black women should be scared of white women like that. I'm in fear for my life and looking at her. And I feel that if I ever was to meet her, she may harm me. Though so aggressive she is, right? Yes, which is the press secretary. I said, gosh. And so, who else is very interesting? And maybe I get to her in a minute. See if I can find it. Yeah, who else is very aggressive is that Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she's a paid actress. They all pay, Marjorie Taylor Greene is aggressive. Caroline Levitt is aggressive. I'm scared of these white women. These white women are becoming really aggressive out here. And, and we should all be in fear. That doesn't make sense. Then you had the issue with that. What's this girl name? Jasmine Crockett. They all angry with her over Melania, whatever, because, she has a valid question. Melania, everybody that's like a status like Melania end up getting caught up and kicked out and so on with their visas. I think there's some things that are valid. I'm still questioning Jasmine Crockett and her frequencies, but hey, right? But these are the things that's going on in the universe. And I'm like, okay. But the interesting thing is she was asking that Marjorie lady to bring Elon, I guess, for a hearing in reference to that Doge. And that Marjorie just cut her down, act like she didn't say nothing, tried to ignore her. I said, that's abuse of power. She has a valid point. Wouldn't some people want to hear Elon, what he has to say about Doge? This orchestrated religion? This alleged federal community that was sponsored by some kind of Indians or Muslims, is sponsored by somebody. What is this? It's on the same lines of people talking about, again, ICE. Who are these people? People are trying to call the police on ICE. And I told you, from what I heard, they were military contractors, outside people, bounty hunters. But I'm telling y'all, we need to be watching these white women. Very much aggressive. Jeez. Right? But I also have a question in reference to ICE and colleges. They were talking about that the Department of Justice is suing Minnesota. Now, Minnesota has a lot of Somalians, right? But they better not only sue Minnesota, because I think there's quite a few frequencies that they need to sue. So the Department of Justice, see, these are the things that they're distracting you from, is suing Minnesota over free tuition for undocumented immigrants. Okay? And let's say the undocumented, the immigrants is just a broad perspective. Okay? But here's the reason why they're suing. Is because they have an energy called the Minnesota Dream Act, where undocumented immigrants get loans, cover full tuition, and scholarships. Some scholarships, allegedly, or education, they could get loans up to $10K to $70K. In addition to scholarships, it can run from $1,000 on up. Their college education is paid for in full, and they also help with child care and legal fees. What's this? We have kids out here struggling to get financial aid and scholarships. That's the same thing I told you about in New York, how they have certain housing and subsidies for third world people. Even some things in Caribbean and African, So what's happening? Because not only do they get this frequency. They also get the American energy, especially if they are black, or if they are Indians. They go under DEI, and we didn't know. They go under DEI and affirmative action, and the equal opportunity frequency, right? So we should kind of check out some of these frequencies, because here's my question. Now that some energies are opening up, now can kids who are Americans get the EOP program? Because the EOP program went from individuals who needed guidance and mentoring and help, who were American people, to an undocumented third world frequency, that they gave that to them, especially in California, how they filled the EOP programs and they purposely overrid the American kids for this frequency here, because it was full of Mexicans. And I'm trying to be as nice as possible, but it is true. And then the people who are part of the EOP program, especially in California, are 99% all Mexicans who only let their people into the program. I mean, I'm just asking questions. So now there's this big hoodoo, because Mexicans, they're talking about, we're going to say Mexicans because, I'm rude, but the Mexicans are supposed to, I guess, basically revenge and redemption on black people for not helping them. So when black people are trying to go into parks and this and that around them, they want to sit up and get on and like harass them and try to kick them out of shit. I guess by making black people believe that they don't belong in certain land and property. But in reality, it is them who don't belong on the land and property, because they come from a whole different entity and colonized it. But I don't think they know that. And I'm not being rude or disrespectful. It's just that they have written history so differently that they believe that they run California and Texas and, the Southwest, but they don't, because you are an immigrant. You came from somewhere else and beyond. Then you became a hybrid. And then the original people that were there, they got colonized, murdered, mayhem, all of that. And you took over. That's the part of history that they don't talk about with you, because they tell you the darker people and melanated people that are there came from Africa. But they don't tell you that they was originally there. See, there's so much confusion. We'll get to that. As we talk about culture of power, religion is so important that, and I don't know if I talked about this, but in the black church, when they're worshiping, they will put their hands in the air for the Lord God, for the Spirit. These motherfuckers are now white people out here playing games, talking about, oh, I guess Obama taught them to put up the Hitler sign. I said, this is what I'm talking about with these Wiggertrons. They just putting anything out. I said, I could clearly see that these people are worshiping. Where in the fuck did they get that from? Black people do not know anything about no Yahtzees. Don't play with black people and the Lord. Under the Jubilee, there's been a lot of energy harvesting, huh? I went back and I was looking at that Juneteenth stuff, and I said, white people or the Wiggertrons, why do they keep trying to energy harvest us? How in the fuck that we didn't catch that there's a white CEO that trademarked Juneteenth? What the fucks? And y'all out here celebrating that shit and making these people money? I was looking at that singer Charlie Wilson from the Gap Band. He's being energy harvested. I said, he look a trip. I said, who's pulling his energy? And at some point, when do you stop performing? He needs to be sitting down and just doing an intimate setting, because he don't got time for all that. But that's energy harvesting. They are still energy harvesting Bill Gates. He's a hack. But they just tell you it's him, but it's not him. It's a sponsor. There's this energy that's like an orchestra, and it's called candlelight concerts. And I think it's Nigel? They're having a candlelight concert, a tribute to Beyonce, 7-Eleven. I said, is Beyonce dead? That's real subliminal. Because I've seen their advertisement before, and the way how they have this marketed, it's like she's dead. And what are they summoning by doing a candlelight concert at Laguna Nigel? Or Nigel? What the white folks doing over there? You know, cultural power. As much as they hate us, but they energy harvesting. Yet, under the Jubilee, we got to be careful with that type of energy, right? Under the Jubilee, they have Monica and Brandy. They have uprooted, and they're creating a cult classic, a cult classic, and they're going on concert. The Boy Is Mine is not that fucking serious. I was telling somebody, I said, I think they dated, her and Monica. I said, their relationship is like a boyfriend-girlfriend. And Brandy is like the girl, and Monica is the male. Because Brandy be playing in Monica's face like a female with a dude, right? We're just saying allegedly. What I found very interesting, and as you guys know, I was in school for costuming and makeup when I was at City College doing theater production. And I was looking at Monica. I said, is this silicone or is this a CFX energy? Whoever is doing her mask is horrible, and they did not put enough tacky glue because it was uprooting at the neck. So whoever that Asian woman is, or whoever, next time do a better job. And as for Brandy, the same. I wouldn't spend my money in the year of the Jubilee going to see their asses. They're having a Muslim Million Man March 2025. And I thought to myself, 1995 Million Man March was gay as a motherfucker. What the hell was that about? Hosted by the Nation of Islam. I don't care what you say. Y'all didn't think that was interesting then? Look at it today. Was it such a great energy? What was that about? What type of energy was that? And that was what, in the 90s, 1995. What was that? I told you they keep cycling. What type of test dummy was that? Go back to 1995 and really peep the frequency. We're just going down some frequencies, right? Matter of fact, I was talking about Monica and her mask. Have you guys looked at Israel's prime minister and that horrible mask that fucked up around the neck? I said, that damn sticky glue. What the fuck? What are they putting on their neck? See, you know, some of the new products that they have out now, it's not that good. And, you know, you have to be careful because, you know, dealing with, you know, sometimes latex, silicone, and then, you know, some other frequency that they may have, you know, your FX, your CFX, you kind of have to be careful because you have to remember that these type of products are still considered textiles. And if they consider textiles, that means that you have to check for sweat, heat, resistance, and so on. What type of materials or fabrics we're going to say that they may have underneath it, what's happening, because their masks just keep uprooting. It's kind of like, you know, when I was talking about JD Vance and him looking pasty and looking like he had eyeliner, and somebody was like, shoot, isn't it Indians that wear eyeliner and also Middle Easterns? And so, you know, it was something underneath it. Y'all have to do a better job. Okay? Because it's not good. And he was talking and that shit just uprooted itself. I said, oh God. This shit is happening in front of our eyes and we're acting like this shit is not happening. The same thing with Trump. They didn't gave us like 5 different Trumps. The man went from orange hair to white hair to this blonde hair to fucked up skin. They was talking about that old Joker dude who's been around forever since the 90s, that Jared Leto. How they say he was getting ready for his role and he was putting people under ritual, sending rats and dead shit to them. I said, that's a cold game and a cold spell. And I said, that's a good cult leader because, you know, he's a good cult leader. I was telling somebody, I said, you know what? We're just having a conversation here under the Jubilee. I said, I was looking at that Jeff Bezos again. I said, is this nigga really rich? Or is he just sponsored? I said, how about all this shit is just an illusion? That he ain't really got any money. Because I'm going to repeat, how does a man who came from a garage doing drop shippings and whatever else become a tech icon, a cyber icon? How does that happen? So I was kind of thinking to myself, I said, are they using the likes of Jeff Bezos? and he's just being sponsored. You know, like Serena Williams and Venus Williams with the football team and their Twitter podcast or whatever's going to go on, sponsored. All these niggas just sponsored. It'll be very funny. And did you see their whole wedding energy or whatever? I don't know what's going on. And all them lower level people were invited. Did you see what Oprah had on with Gail? Why was Usher there? I saw these are just lower level people. And then that Tales from the Crypt chick that he's marrying, she not inviting her mama. They said at her first wedding she invited her mother. She didn't invite her mama. To this. I said, because she don't know that's her mama, maybe. Because her mama may look at her like, you're not my daughter. You a whole man's. Because when I was looking at them arms and shoulders, I said, that show look masculine up there. That don't look like a feminine woman. Then the waist is so small, like a man. Women rib cages is just not, their waist is just not that small. We got to carry babies and stuff up in there. What's going on? A man can be that small. Very small like that and very shapely. I like to eat. That's why I guess I can't be a rich man's wife. I like to eat too much. You're not going to have me uncomfortable. But you can't listen to me. Then I was looking at Lenny Kravitz, right? I really look at him. You know, I met Lenny Kravitz back in the 90s. I met Lenny Kravitz in San Francisco on Hayes Street, right? In Hayes Valley, because I went, you know, not pastor, but he's a gospel singer, Powell. And Powell used to wear this Jerry curl wig, and he used to come to our church, and his whole gospel group be blowing like a motherfucker. Well, he owned a soul food restaurant in Hayes Valley. So my ass used to go to tip that goddamn chicken. So I walked up in there. I said, that's motherfucking Lenny Kravitz. So I walked over there, and I'm talking to Lenny Kravitz. He a cool dude. But the reason why I'm tripped out is because that Lenny Kravitz doesn't match this current Lenny Kravitz. This Lenny Kravitz, is that Jada Pinkett? Is that Prince? Who is this? He's not that short of a man, and he's not that small. He's pretty nice. And some people are like, well, he's older now. Bullshit. I don't know who that is. Did y'all know that Fantasia had her face done? I was looking, they was doing a compare and contrast. I said, oh my damn. How did we miss that? Is that Fantasia? They was talking about Cam Newton. And then they did a comparing. Come on. It's in front of our faces, right? Miley Cyrus is one of them. The funny thing is, under what they call this frequency of the Jubilee, Black people are saying, and people are saying, gay men and women forfeit their opportunity to be parents, and they should not have children. The loophole in that is there's some gay people who were in relationships who've had children. So they're not talking about them, meaning they were married and so on. They're not talking about them. They're talking about the ones who walk in gay and know they're gay, men and women, and decide to have children. And you know what? They're right. They have forfeited. And you're like, wait a minute, you should be canceled. I don't give a fuck. There was this black couple, I'm assuming at the Children's Choice Awards, whatever, Nickelodeon. And it was this gay couple of two men with a boy and a girl. And they had that green slime on them, right? And you guys will probably look them up. Did y'all know that that green slime is insinuating ejaculation? And they had that shit on them kids and on the two fathers. I said, oh my gosh. And I had to go back to the Nickelodeon shit and the slime and all of that. I said, that is ejaculation. Oh. How we miss the rituals. Isn't it very interesting that Justin Bieber's wife is admitting she does spell work on Justin Bieber? Because that's not his wife. She has fetus hands. All these embryo and fetus hands that these motherfuckers are having. What do you expect? It's something very interesting going on in New York, right? And they're talking about this Zohran Mamdani who then won the Democratic primaries. Here's your distraction. This is so disrespectful to not only New York, but the United States, period. And this is also disrespectful towards African people and Black people. These Indians in Africa is a cold game and a cold piece of work. This man is supposed to be from Uganda. So you know in reality he is considered Afro-American. And the fucked up thing about it is that these Indians that are in Africa go there, learn and pull and push on the educational frequency. A lot of them become professors teaching in Afro studies, and they have monopolized the Afro studies world. From Oxford, from Columbia, to, I don't know, whatever Ivy League. Trust and believe. Yale, they be all up in the departments. When some African students or some Black students may be doing their dissertations or thesis, they have a lot to say and they will argue their points. At Columbia, it was very problematic. I know that for a fact. So this is a stranger danger into the society, right? And we really don't know what's going on. They've created this being, I guess he's some kind of assembly person, and he must have a paid sponsor. What's very interesting, again, this is I believe it's a hoax, and I believe it's a distraction. But but we should watch it, because this is very serious, because this goes back to the cheating of Al Gore and Baby Bush. When Al Gore was running against Bush, and it was that whole ballot and count. And I believe 1,000% that Al Gore won, but they cheated him out of it and put Bush in instead. The other issue of cheating was between Trump and Biden. And they got so bad with it that they made it an issue to talk about Biden anymore on social media, especially on YouTube, or you will get censored because people felt a certain way. The thing is that with the Bush and Gore, it's kind of similar. It was a whole big deal, and it was an energy with Florida. If y'all go back and research that in the 2000s with his brother Jeb Bush and his crack daughter. I was really shocked, and I said, Andrew Cuomo? How he do that? Andrew Cuomo makes sense to me. This whole actor does not make sense to me. So we have to be careful in this universal soul that we have these mixed use people who are mixed company coming in talking about they're from Uganda and Africa. You already have the South African frequencies. And these people are the ones who are he's a DEI. He's the one is causing the problem. I mean, his people with the affirmative action, and we have to stop talking light. I told you, New York people, y'all didn't peep when they was sweeping down the street doing hoodoo work, when it sat up and took hoodoo from black people and used black people's spell work against y'all. The Sikhs, all of them, sweeping down the street. And now we have this issue. They have a lot to say about him, right? So they were talking about the tally, and they're talking all this shit about him, right? You have Eric Adams talking shit. And I'm like, Eric Adams, go on now, please. You already know the what's up. You said fuck everything in New York, and you ran your ass to DC, and you were at the inauguration, and you had your private meeting with Trump. So that's what makes me think that all this shit is suspicious, and everybody knows what's going on. They were talking about that 430,000 people voted for that Mamadani guy. They said a total, allegedly, which these are codes, of 900,000 voted in total. I'm confused about what's going on in New York. Is it that people move? Because I know there's a lot of people, especially people with wealth, moved out of New York. Okay? They said that Mamadani dude got 9% of the vote. And they feel that it doesn't mean that he's going to win. They're saying that different financial organizations don't want him in place. In addition to his politics, they said it's crazy talking about he wants to Trump-proof New York City, and he wants to freeze, I guess, rent, or have like some kind of rent control energy. So there's some questions here, right? Apparently Wall Street has an issue with this person. My main thing is to watch. This is exactly what I was trying to tell you guys. These people are sleeper cells, and they're popping up out of nowhere. It's like they were asleep And they're like, here we are, you know, because in New York, they barely own the hotels and they hire their own people. Then you're wondering why you're getting horrible and bad quality in these hotels now. Back in 2019, it was overran. It crossed the board. So we're all confused. We should all like, what in the world? But if you say something that's very discriminatory, I was listening to Energies in London, and they were saying how all of these presidents or whatever they call them in different parts of London are all of these Indians / Muslims. They said the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, in Birmingham, London, Shafiq Shah? In Leeds, Asghar Khan. In Blackburn, Paris, another Khan, shit. In Sheffield, somebody named Maggie. And I don't know what he is, because he kind of looked Ethiopian to me. In Rockdale, Shakely Ahmad. And they said that they get free subsidies. They have between 6 to 8 kids. They're getting all of this. And then they said there are over 13,000 Shura courts. Islamic Shura Council. What's happening here? What is this takeover of a forced religion and culture and lifestyle? What's this, right? Tesla is merging with Waymo, the self-driving vehicle. You don't need no Tesla doing. It's already doing that, but okay. You all seen the robotic energies that be delivering food? They're saying they just might as well stop that shit because they keep knocking the shit over. Did y'all see that fashion designer? I think it's called this fashion brand and this Italian designers called PDF Channel, and they created this whole fashion show of a prison yard and black people wearing prison clothes and urban wear. Is that what we're doing? And motherfuckers gonna wear that shit? They done went ass backwards into the night. It reminded me of DMX, Rough Riders in a way, but prison clothes. Really? See the rituals under Jubilee? That's spell work. The Filipino nurses then got their asses caught up, huh? They're calling them the Filipino Mafia. I said, y'all just now finding out about the Filipino Mafia and the nurses? How they will get you fired, tell on you, backstab you, and won't give your family medical care? Them? The ones that will leave your fucking loved ones in piss? Them? Who will be over your loved ones talking Tagalog? Them? The ones who's running the home health care business will have your loved ones walking outside in diapers and pissy? Them? The ones who have background and will have their family threaten you if you fuck with them? Oh, y'all just finding out about them Filipino mafia in the nursing system. Okay. They say they got her, so Ann Winters then stepped down from the American Vogue as head editor, huh? I told y'all she been disappeared with Andre Leon. Have y'all been watching that Men Fashion Week? Have you been watching some of the clothes that they've been wearing? Have y'all been seeing the hefty garbage bags that they've been wearing? I've been like, what the hell? And all these handbags that they're wearing, these purses, right? Okay. So there's an issue. And there's an issue with these hybrid Native Americans. They have an issue because they use Beyonce as propaganda, right? There's different stories, different folkloric stories, and different history accounts of the Buffalo Soldiers. Nobody's wrong, nobody is right, it's just different. I've heard different stories about the Buffalo Soldiers. So I'm going to tell you what I know. I don't give a fuck what you know. That's what you know. This is what I know. That's why I say there's no wrong, there's no right. Because I tell you, we all could be right. But somebody going to be wrong, okay? What I will say, there's something interesting going on. So Beyonce has this t-shirt, I'm assuming. And the hybrid Native Americans feel a ways about it. So much so that they talk so much shit. And I guess Beyonce performs in a shirt that calls Native Indians opponents. That's true. And I was looking at this young lady, this hybrid Native American who needed to tell black people in so many words when they kidnapped our black asses from Africa. It was the hybrid Native Americans that helped fight and protect our black asses when we came on the slave ship. That's what she had to say. But American blacks didn't come on the slave ships. Actually, your people did, from Siberia and Russia. We don't know where the fuck y'all people came from because you're immigrants. So the Buffalo Soldiers is a very interesting frequency. And they believe that the Buffalo Soldiers hunted the Native Americans. That's very interesting because I've heard two different stories, three. I've always understood the original Buffalo Soldiers of course, being the indigenous people, that they kidnapped the indigenous people and then put them on this island of Jamaica, which created two different sources of type of indigenous people. Then, of course, pulling the other frequency to the Jamaican islands from Africa, right? But then also them already being here, the Buffalo Soldiers, that also fought in the Civil War. What is also very interesting about the Civil War is the original Confederates were black. So it's like the Republicans fighting the Democrats. Okay? And the side of the Buffalo Soldiers was on the side of the Confederate blacks. So the Confederates was fighting the Confederates to remain Confederate, but they killed the real Confederates and then created that other energy calling the Yankees and all of that shit, right? Because they lied to us. They said it's to set you free. Because they don't want to tell you that the Buffalo Soldiers also fought for liberty. Because they don't want to tell you that as they call the natives, were fighting against our ancestors because the white people needed allies. Just like the Chinese were their allies, were that in between. Well, they promised the hybrids that uprooted, that came out of nowhere. If you help us here, we'll give you land, we'll give you money, we'll give you everything. Just help us with these motherfuckers. Because what is very interesting is that they brought those hybrids here through the Amish, through the Lutherans, through the Quakers, through the Mormons, right? Through the Amish Baptists, Pilgrims. Because originally, especially in America, America didn't have rats. Rats were brought over from Asia into the Americas. And the rats had plagues that were killing, and fleas. And when these people, your hybrids, who was with the Pilgrims and so on, was greeted by our melanated indigenous and took the gifts that they gave them, the woven baskets, the woven blankets that had the fleas from the rats in it. They don't want to talk about the plagues and the vicious ass rats and fleas that was killing them. The smallpox, aka chicken pox. That's why there's a folkloric tale. They'll say the folkloric tale comes from the medieval, but it really comes from the native people. And the folkloric tale is that if you have the pox or any type of chicken pox and it's on your face, you're considered a battler, a survivor. You're considered blessed, powerful, especially if it's somewhere on your face or body, scarred. They don't want to talk about that, especially the medieval period was a social experiment, and that was the plague era. That's why they play with you on Google daggers and don't want to give you the years of the medieval. The medieval period is not the Middle Ages. The Middle Ages is different from the medieval, just like the Dark Ages. So you can't go for that because they're mixing everything together, and I don't know why they're doing that, but that's untrue. Okay? The medieval era carried a lot of disease, leprosy houses, aka AIDS and HIV houses. This was the era that downplayed Christianity because of all the plagues, and people started to become atheists and basically say there is no God. It couldn't be a God. Doesn't that sound like the pandemic? Okay? So we have to understand and get very much clarity and understand a lot of these animals and rodents that you see wasn't naturally here. So when we get over here to these people called Native Americans, they didn't do shit for black people. Black people was helping their asses. Tell the truth, they don't even have any understanding of what's going on. That's why it's funny when they say that, Texas have the highest energies of Nigerians. Of course they do, because because the Nigerians is considered a tribe, an indigenous indigo tribe that they kidnapped and put them on a whole different continent. Because the Nigerians lead all the way down into Mexico. But they don't want to talk about that. They don't want to tell the truth. That's why there's so much confusion. Because the original people who were hiding out people were the indigenous melanated people. The native hybrids, no, you help entrap and then gave them to motherfuckers. That's what you did do. You told. So if you want to cancel out that person or the likes of Beyonce, go ahead. Because your history not real. The Buffalo Soldiers were, I'm going to call them Jamaicans. The original Jamaicans that were helping the indigenous people. They hunted the hybrid indigenous people. The fake ones that were harming the indigo people, the indigenous. Because in reality, your hybrid selves need to give back lands and money that is old. You guys are fake. You put yourself in place of the original people. That's the truth. And some of you guys are angry that black people know the real history, because you guys been taught through your history and through books and words and folklore lies. And deceptive knowledge. So therefore, you want people to cancel out Beyonce over a t-shirt. I say hell no, fuck no. That's why I say there's so many dynamics of what a Buffalo Soldier is. And I'm going to say there's not just one history. There's not just the Bob Marley energy that talks about it. We just don't have one history with Buffalo Soldiers. There's multiple histories with Buffalo Soldiers. They don't even want to tell you the energies of Nat Turner is connected to a Buffalo Soldier. They tell you Haiti. We just need to start telling the truth of what it is, because they keep trying to erase us. You can't erase us and try to replace us with Indians and Muslims who don't have a history here. Their history comes here built on top of bringing discouragement and poverty. I'm not being mean, I'm telling truth. That's why they didn't want to tell you in reality how in the fuck a lot of the indigenous people took sick from them fucking rats that came from Indian shit. Big ass ones. Plagued. How you going to prove it? Read, study, understand folklore. I knew about the folklore. I thought everybody knew about a lot of the folklores of the Buffalo Soldiers. And nobody out here trying to disrespect no Native Americans. We just want truth, right? Sometimes the truth hurts. Sometimes the truth has to reveal itself. That's why the whole reparation energy is so convoluted. Because that means the United States would have to take back all of your resources, Native Americans, and take back the land, and for real, that eminent domain. That means that money that's for your children when they get a certain age, that needs to go to our children who are indigenous here. That means technically the original Nigerians that were here, that means they're owed money. That means technically they can sue the United States for basically replacing them, stealing them, and putting them on another continent and islands. That means technically they could sue Mexico. Shit, we are. What's up? The Ethiopians, Somalians, the Sudanese, Egyptians, they're all supposed to be on the land in Italy. They kicked them off of that and put them on Africa. And then replaced them for wicked ass Romanesque motherfuckers. They don't want to show you the original people over there in Rome, do they? That's why they hide their history. That's why Ethiopians and them and Eritreans be up there thinking that they are mixed with Italian. No, you're not. You're the original Italians. That's why y'all sexual deviants. That's why they talk about that whole story with, what is it, Nero and Sporus? How Nero was so volatile towards his wife, he murdered and killed her and kicked her in her belly, and then had the audacity to go pick up a boy and pull the Esther and had them eunuchs dress him up and castrated him and had him pretending to be his wife, changing his voice, makeup, heels, and all. They was talking about that in so many words. But they're not also talking about how they scalped his wife and put her hair, sewed it on his head. Total plastic surgery, castrated, and then pass spores around as a whole. That was your Ethiopians that did that. Over there in that good Rome. Motherfuckers. It taps back into the Euro world of the other Jews. When the white folks over there in the Euro world killed the indigenous Jews, which were melanated, saying, you brought these rats over here that caused the plague. They don't want to talk about that history that is written. So they killed them all. And it wasn't them. It was them letting them other people come in and bring them rats in too. That caused the plague. The same thing. You see what I'm talking about? You see how history is written, but they don't want to talk about it? Then you have scholar and historians telling you this bullshit, and they barely know. That's why I said everybody has a story. They have a thesis. Nobody's story is wrong and nobody's story is right. It's just in writing, and people rep it. And y'all believe that shit because they rep it, because you think, well, they've done their research. We all could do research. You guys so distracted, you guys didn't even know that Biden's family is on trial. People out here tripping because they saying black men stink. They smell like feces and must. Not all. What's coming through y'all pores? What type of showers y'all taking? They say more and more. Right? Why y'all smell like feces? I was telling somebody, I said, are they having sex with men? What's happening? As I talk about the draft, did you see that tall ass Chinese guy? God damn, what a mutant. Now, we know Chinese people don't grow that goddamn tall. What's his name? Yang. Yang, is it Yang Hansen? I don't know why his name, but he's woo-wee. Did you see that Colin Murray Boyles? He had the audacity to be taking a picture with that white girl in that red dress, that ritual. So they calling them Nepo babies, but just to say all that, they saying that they feel that these basketball kids don't need to be getting paid in college to play basketball, that they need to hustle and struggle. I agree. But do you see how they planted that white girl? I'm coming to the conclusion that going forward, if I see a black guy who's in football and basketball with a white girl, your ass gay. They have him under ritual with a white girl. That's an insult. I said, what's going on here? With this white girl in this red dress, this spell work. Out here insulting us. I'm just gonna come to the conclusion. White woman doesn't mean rich and wealth. She's rich and wealthy. She gonna take your money, nigga. Don Cornelius, he learned his lesson. He was like, this bitch is trying to kill me. Well, Don, is too late. Same thing with Kobe Bryant's wife. Shit, you see what happened to B. Smith, where her husband, he moved in that whole white woman on her, and she has that Alzheimer's. Yeah. At this point, going forward, if I see you, you're a sportsman, and you with them damn white girls, and you flaunting her ass around, I'm going to assume that's a ritual and your ass is gay. Allegedly. There's a connection there. Yeah, here it is. What's his name? Hegaseth. There was a press conference and they're angry at this news lady named Jennifer, and he's accusing her of being the worst journalist. And it's over something about uranium being moved out of Iran. So I think it's so many words. They trying to say that they were lying about all that nuclear shit. And you know, when I talk about black men stinking, you know there's a little movement going on that more and more young black kids and black men are having sex with animals. More bestiality is going on. And you understand they're out here having sex with dogs and shit. Yeah, it's happening more. It makes me wonder, maybe that's why, that's another energy. And they were pointing out also in Philadelphia, a lot of the men stink. I was like, is it maybe because they're Muslim or something? And then maybe people under that demonic frequency where they're not getting in the shower and they just maybe not using washcloths. I don't know. But and I was looking at something with Cambodia and that bestiality, and they was up there talking about how they were up there smoking cats and shit. Meaning they was, have a smoked meat. And I was like, that's their bestiality. I was very interested because I want to understand the spell work. Because they were talking about that they had on one side a whole bunch, had a whole bunch of blood from cats, and then a whole bunch of blood from dogs. I said, that's a cold game and a cold piece of spell work right there. That's a cold game of bestiality. Because I told you about the new energy of the horses, them, having sex more and more, having sex with horses and shit, right? And bestiality, under the energies of, the Jubilee. We have more black men being very interested in having sex with animals and getting caught. Shit, you was up here catching them with dudes and trends. Now they out here having sex with animals, bestiality, thinking that they're connecting to some kind of demonic frequencies, right? Anyway, this is just a little bit of energies of some questions that I had under this energy that they call the Jubilee. So, this is Wayward Renegade Witches blog. Hit us up when you want some real motherfucking work done. And oh yeah, I forgot they wanted me to talk about Walter Scott from the Whispers dying at 81. That's a ritual. However, the brother, was it from Atlantic Star? He died, was the lead singer from Atlantic Star? And it's very interesting because don't you remember back in the 80s when his brother left the group saying that he can't praise two gods? And he said, and I believe it was his brother. I thought it was his brother. And he just left the group because remember it was two lead singers for Atlantic Star. It was kind of the darker one, then it was the lighter brown, then it was the light brown one. Because the dark one with the lighter eyes, that's the one who recently died. So I've been wondering, because I said, I wonder what's going on with the Whispers. And it was very interesting. I was just thinking about them. Like I said, dang, they still going and still singing. Now, they didn't took his ass out. So that'll be very interesting, considering the other twin. Right? Yeah, these people. Then they were talking about what's her name, Leanne Rhymes, how her teeth and fell out of her crystal meth mouth. So we're gonna stop playing with her ass, right? And then people was all in their feelings about, you know, Peter Guns letting what's her name, Amina Butterfly, his baby mama, go homeless. And I said, well, shit, Peter Guns had them dirty ass feet, so we shouldn't, you know, count on him too much. But you know, Amina got fucking deported. So we need to stop playing. She was deported. Okay? So anyway, this is Weird Renegade Witches Blog. It is up when you want some real motherfucking work done.